Alright, my lovelies. I guess I'm the closest thing that Gamergate has to an official historian at this point. Though plenty of other people know what's going on, I'm not claiming the title. But, so there has been an incident. Up until now, the worst that could be said, really, of anyone who had been involved in Gamergate and directly linked to Gamergate was Ralph of the Ralph Retort. Punching a cop after waking up drunk in a hotel lobby. That was about the only thing that could be pinned on anyone associated with Gamergate. Whereas the people on the other side have been involved in a whole lot of horrible shit. Sexual exploitation, groping, assault, rape alleged, and so forth. So far, Gamergate has passed largely unscathed by any of this, but it's been interesting to see this trope kind of evolve, that respecting women turns out not to be respecting women very much at all, and all the people who say cunt a lot and so forth seem to be the good people, quite frankly. It's not much of a surprise to me, but apparently it's a surprise to a lot of people. But from punching a cop in a drunken stupor, there has been something of a jump, a leap, if you will. A guy who was loosely associated with Gamergate at the start, who went by the online handle Seattle4Truth, has murdered his father, apparently while accusing him of being a leftist paedophile. Now, Seattle4Truth is not associated with the remnants of Gamergate anymore. He wasn't involved with Gamergate for a long time. He had a falling out with Gamergate. He associated with and wrote for the Ralph Retort, who are now backpedaling from their association with him so quick you'd think they were a unicyclist. It's it's a bad situation, and some people are seeking to push him away and say he was never involved or whatever, and others are seeking to make him some kind of central key figure in Gamergate. He was involved in a couple of the documentaries that were made, the long rambling conspiratard ones that nobody really took particularly seriously. But I don't think we should disown him or pretend that he had nothing to do with Gamergate any more than I think people should pretend that Russian Deadpool had nothing to do with feminism or whatever else. You know, you gotta own your shit, and to understand how such a paranoid loon could end up involved with Gamergate, you have to understand Gamergate, you have to understand people who sought to control, exploit, or use Gamergate. So Seattle4Truth became involved largely, I think, because he wanted to push his conspiracy theories and saw some kind of cultural Marxism nonsense or whatever involved. Some people take that more seriously than others. Some people understand that it's just a theory method for examining society. Some people spin it into a conspiracy. The trouble is, no one really knows what you're talking about when you mention these things. But, I mean, the whole thing is in his name. Truth, you know, the 9/11 truth movement. He definitely thought that that was a conspiracy, and that was just the tip of the iceberg of his other conspiracies. You know, the slightest and faintest of connections between Digra and DARPA, and he would be spinning it off into some insane nonsense about them working together to brainwash kids using computer games or the Common Core education. You know, there was a little gang of these people, and they were good diggers for information, but the trouble was that nothing they said could really be trusted, ever, which is a pretty big problem when you're angling for truth. But how do they get involved? You got to remember at the start, and even today, Gamergate was being victimized and attacked constantly, and looking for information, anything it could find to show that these people it was against were the bad guys, and it was grabbing allies wherever it could. This is how Milo managed to get involved. and he didn't even have to lie or spin things in his reporting. Just the sheer fact that he was being supportive and objective and fair at that time, that was enough to make him a darling for a little while. And so it goes with these conspiracy nuts. They were finding things and presenting them as good information. Much of it wasn't. They were supportive, they were motivated, and Gamergate could not be picky about who its allies were. But hindsight shows you that, these people are dangerous. This isn't my first rodeo with murderous conspiracy people. The guy that shot up the, I think it was the Discovery Channel some years back, is someone who was an acquaintance of mine online, and I exchanged a few insults, I think, with Seattle4Truth and some of that little gang. He left Gamergate for Gamergate Revolt because Gamergate wasn't extreme enough for him, and then he turned on the whole thing and tried to turn that into something. Just saw conspiracies and nonsense everywhere. The guy was a loon, but he was able to get purchase because times were tough. He seemed to be providing what people wanted, and people were desperate for allies. I think moving forward into other things in the future, I think we can afford to be more discerning and careful about allies. That's a lesson to be learned for the future for a lot of movements. I think it's be careful who you let on board. I think that applies to both sides in these cultural conflicts now. People will say one thing and be and do another, and it's worth watching out for that. Zang. It's been called misogynistic, racist, a hate group, reactionary. It's been blamed for Trump, for keeping women out of games and technology. None of this is true. If you want the real story, then you need to buy Inside Gamergate.